Hello everyone, I'm Vincent Ghossoub from Falafel Games. I will skip the title of this. Yeah, so the title of this talk is Profitability in Diverse Markets. Although my own focus had been for close to 10 years in one very specific market, which is the Middle East market. But I hope this experience can contribute to the diversity of our knowledge in here. So I will start this presentation with a little bit of some of our journey in tinkering with our business model and the profitability of some of our games, and how it had us stumble upon what we believe is a brand new category of possible income for the future, and it's kind of related to eSports somehow. So we basically develop and publish mid-core games, so much more kind of like selective, less frequent than the kind of games that Alison was just presenting. And I liked, so you mentioned your favorite games on the presentation. I didn't mention mine, but my favorite game is Splendor, which is a board game. But I've been playing it for years and I love it. We've developed and published strategy role-playing games, strategy games, word games, RPG games, 2D, 3D. And really, we've faced some of the challenges that I think all of us have still faced. High CPIs, cost per user to acquire a user is always going up, and it's eroding into our ROI, and how are we going to do a better ROI? And of course, as a publisher in the Middle East, I can always tell you can come up with operational excellence. You can do great customer support, you can do great localization, you can do great live ops, you can do a lot of good user acquisition, new channels, new local channels for user acquisition. But this is just an arms race towards where everybody's just trying to get better and better and better at doing the same thing. And eventually it's going to still erode the ROI. The winner at the end of the day is the player, the consumer. They're going to get better games and better service. So we tried to think a little bit about how, by the way, so I have very little data on the presentation, but I'm going to be speaking data. We tried to think about how can we change the rules of the game a little bit, being locally focused. What is a local angle that can give us good protection in a walled garden as much as possible? And really, it was almost by mistake that we stumbled upon a very, very, very fundamental point for us, which is the difference between necessary localization and nice-to-have localization. So I will try to explain what I mean by necessary and nice-to-have. I think this picture can explain. This is a word game, crosswords in Arabic, okay? So players in Saudi Arabia or in the Middle East can play it. We here cannot play it. If we were to offer a crossword game that is amazing product, great engagement loops, great monetization loops built into it to the Saudi player, but in English or Chinese, they're never going to play it. So this is what I mean by necessary localization. We stumbled upon this test, and on this particular game, our cost per install was 3 cents, which is, I think we all agree, it's a very low cost per install, especially that on the mid-core games, our cost per install is $3 to $10. So we got like orders of magnitude of saving. And the only reason the product is okay, but the content is amazing. The only reason this small app was able to be like a magnet to players was that they didn't have many other choices. In the bloodbath, it kind of like stood out as the only word game that can be played. However, So we got our CPI down. Our LTV is a word game, it's not so high. Advertising income is not amazing yet. eCPMs are very low, so most of the income was from in-app purchases. Yeah, it was profitable, but the LTV was not at the level where we could generate significant revenues and ongoing. So we went back to the drawing board and we started thinking about how can we keep the necessary localization element but increase the LTV factor. Obviously, word games, text medium would monetize much less than video. So we thought, let's kind of like combine these two. We come up with something. If you look at this slide, it's kind of like similar to HQ Trivia when we came up with it early on. But the idea is that we had never thought of reinventing media, of reinventing TV. All we were doing was tinkering with our CPIs and our LTVs. This is basically like a game that is based on local words, local quizzes. Okay, so difficult to replicate, even if you have a great quiz game in China, with a host streaming live. And that host stream, it's an always-on game, not like HQ Trivia where it's session-based. I think it's a better fit for like people who use mobile, for mobile players. Just being always on, so you just walk in, you find a host, and you start playing. You're waiting for your Uber or your Didi or whatever you're doing. You can just have a turn or two. And so this tinkering with our CPIs and LTVs led us to kind of like find ourselves in a situation where the rules of competition changed a lot, and we found ourselves kind of like a next generation TV. But a next generation TV where the game show audience, you can think of this audience here, can actually participate. So what about participatory live games, reinventing the game shows of TV on live, and how does it impact, the gameplay, the feeling of playing together, of watching together? How does it relate to games where we actually play together sometimes, gambling games, like in the casino, how that sometimes we go play together and there's a dealer streaming the game to us. So we started thinking about all of these, and we are still trying to experiment with it. Our fundamental observation here is actually very simple. You usually, you see companies, organizations trying to define their audience as either players or viewers. But now we have a certain dilemma, I mean, our viewer can be a player, our player can be a viewer. What are we? And this is also reflected in how companies behave. So this is Dota comparison, Valve comparison to Netflix. So next, in a couple of weeks, Dota 2 will have the International, which is their biggest yearly event. I think the prize pool has crossed 30 million by now and still going up. And they're treating it, so they're like purely a game, and they're treating the people who are going to like be watching this game, this tournament on Twitch as purely viewers. So is Netflix, who has pure viewers, and sometimes they come up with like concepts like Bandersnatch, where you can pick the sequence of what you want to watch, but they make you view it. But what if a viewer wants to take part in the game and control or influence the outcome of the game or how the game is going to go around? So as in football, it most often doesn't end up very well to whoever tries to participate in the game. Traditionally, we've always had limitations, space limitations. How am I going to have 60,000 viewers come and play on a 100-meter field? But these limitations are actually gone now. I can have 60,000 members participating in my game. I'm not going to say viewing or playing, just participating in the game somehow. At some turn they play, some turn they don't play. By way of example, for example, if there's like a penalty shot that's about to be taken, why can't the viewer nowadays, okay, affect the wind speed of this penalty shot? Why not? Spend some coins to affect the wind speed or the accuracy of the shot or the distance the goalkeeper can jump, can dive, or the size of the goal. I don't know. It's like whenever they want, they can affect it also whenever they want, and in mass, everybody can affect it at the same time. And so, what does this mean? What does this mean for us? I think this participant profile, which is at the intersection between viewer and player, is actually a completely new category. And I happened to see some data from Superdata that says that by next year, I think 2020, interactive media will be worth $45 billion. Will be a $45 billion market. What they mean by interactive media is chatting, gifting, tipping, following streamers or players or other users on Twitch. But this level of participation, I think, is a legacy from whatever we're used to do in traditional games, in traditional sports. There's a next participatory level where we actually take part in affecting the influence of the game. And to give you an idea, I think, of the size of this opportunity, we can compare Dota 2 as the organizer of an electronic sport with the FIFA, which is an organizer of a traditional sport. So Dota 2 still doesn't earn as much from its media rights. They still earn from selling items in the games and subscriptions in the games and battle passes and other sell skins and things like that. FIFA does not earn a lot of money from in-game items. They don't earn so much money by selling shirts or balls or nets or whatever. They actually earn a lot of money from media, most money from media. This is like their sacred cash cow, the media rights. So there's a little gap here in terms of the composition of revenue between the organizers, the principal organizers of traditional sports and electronic sports. And I think it can be exploited with participatory playing or participatory viewer. The viewer is a player and the player is a viewer. Thank you.
Great timing. So we have time for questions. Would you like to ask questions? People are always shy. I don't know why though. Okay, if you don't, I do. When you're working with participatory games, how are you dealing with the fact, like with trolling or players trying to be harassing each other? Are there layers of protection for the players?
We're discovering this, so right now we're at a very early stage of our participatory kind of playing, and we're doing very simple board games and social casino games where players can affect each other. My hypothetical answer to this question is I believe it's a game balance issue. Just like players can exploit other players in traditional strategy games, they can farm, they can bully, and it's usually best protected by a good balance where it's not worth it to bully for the bully. Whenever we're not facing harassment right now, but whenever we face harassment, I think that would be our first stab at solving it, the game balance.